According to CNBC, immigration is taking pressure off the job market. And today, I wanted to talk about why that's not a good thing. Foreign-born workers, which is a weird way to avoid saying immigrants, made up 18.6% of the civilian labor force in 2023, up from 15.3% in 2006. And depending on what expert you talk to, they might tell you that's a good thing. That without these foreign-born, they really don't want to say immigrants, labor, the US labor pool would shrink because of lower birth rates and an aging workforce, impacting programs like Social Security. But this sort of problem can be more easily seen when you take a look at a population of a country based on age groups. In fact, there's even a handy little website precisely for that, populationpyramid.net, which I'll be getting that information from, and I'll include a link down below in case you want to check it out for yourself. China is a popular example to look at for this type of data. Here they are in the 1950s, and as you can see, their population is actively growing. There are always more young people coming into the workforce than there are people who are aging out. Something fairly important when you're talking about systems like Social Security, which essentially rely on the younger generation's work to take care of people who are retiring. China is really well known for implementing their one-child policy nationwide in 1980, which was enforced through a mix of incentives and sanctions. Mostly sanctions, I'd imagine, including fines and, even more gruesome, forced abortion. Well, here's what their population looked like in the year 2000. As you can see, there's been a pretty noticeable shift in birth rate, and if this continues, experts are afraid it'll turn into what's been coined as an inverted pyramid. Here they are again in 2020. But let's take a look at another country who's also a notable example of a place with a low birth rate, who perhaps has an even more pronounced inverted pyramid in their population groups. But this video isn't about those other countries, it's about the US. And here we are today in 2024. Are you starting to see that inverted pyramid shape yet? Okay, well maybe this will help. This next set of data is actually projected for the year 2100. Do you see it yet? No? Me neither. And that's because there isn't a problem with our population growth. You see, what these so-called experts are leaving out is populations don't just grow forever. In fact, in developed economies, they typically begin to slow, which is exactly what you see with our numbers. In fact, you typically don't see these perfect pyramid shapes outside of very poorly developed areas, places with a high number of young dependents and a low life expectancy. For example, here's Mozambique in 2024. But if you give them time and check back at the projected figures for, say, 2100,
one eternity later,
well, you start to see some real resemblance with the US. And that's not a coincidence. It's just the natural development of a population as economies develop. And you can see the same thing time and time again across multiple different countries. And in some instances, you may see negative birth rates, for example, here in Germany. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as it's gradual.
Wow, how gradual!
For example, as of December 2022, 61.9% of the population of the US was of working age, compared to 64.8% in 2020. That means we had a 2.9% decline in our workforce. In 2024, the Social Security tax rate is 6.2% for both employees and employers. But let's just focus on your average working Joe for a moment. With an average income of approximately $31,000 in 2019, that means you'd be paying approximately $1,900 a year towards Social Security. And if you had to make up the difference for that working population decline of 2.9% and pay their share too, that would come out to a whopping $55.73. Certainly a little anticlimactic, isn't it? That's basically the equivalent of dinner for two at Denny's once a year, which I don't think most people would consider financially devastating. And if that's the benefit of foreign labor, that is, quote, taking pressure off the job market, what are the consequences? Because nothing's free. There's always a trade-off, right? And in this case, it's actually pretty simple. Jobs are going to be even harder to find, and they're going to pay even less. It's supply and demand. If you have a certain number of jobs but not enough workers, employers are going to have to offer more pay to incentivize people to work for them instead of the competition. They're also going to be able to make a lot less upfront demands in terms of qualifications or other stipulations because it's not a buyer's market. Buyers in this case being employers and sellers being the workers. Fundamentally, that's exactly what the job market is. You're selling your time, experience, and labor to your employer for a paycheck. But if we suddenly have a huge influx of quote-unquote foreign labor, immigrants, and not to typecast, but typically people coming from places with worse standards of living and lower pay, fighting for the same number of jobs, well, guess who's going to be more than willing to do your job for a lot less? And it doesn't take a genius to figure out which person your employer is going to choose. Because at the end of the day, they started a business to make money. And if they can save money on labor, well, of course they will.
What is this? You're making me pay you to stand at the cash register? What is the meaning of this? Have you gone off the deep end?
So when you see articles like this saying, immigrants are taking pressure off the job market, what they really mean is, with all this new, cheap labor, employers can get away with paying a lot less. Well, that's all I have for you today, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so please do leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can see the next video I put out. I'll see you next time.
Plotting his oppression. What the heck does that mean? I don't know.